If you give me 2 seconds of your time, I'd just like to say a massive thank you for following me so far. This really can't be done without you, the listeners. So thank you. Welcome to Underdog to Owner podcast, where we dive into inspiring stories from entrepreneurs and innovators. I'm your host, Paul Atkins, and today I'm excited to be joined by Ben Weldon, entrepreneur, co-founder of HBC Logistics. We'll explore his journey, the lessons he's learned, and the advice from anyone looking to succeed in business. Ben is a dynamic entrepreneur who's built from the ground up. This episode of Underdog to Owner is sponsored by Romax Solution. If you're in the construction business and you know growth brings a new challenge, finding the right people to keep the projects moving, one missing tradesperson can slow the entire site down, that's where Romax Solution comes in. Romax Solutions is a UK trade and labour agency supplying skilled trades and reliable labour to construction companies that need to scale quickly, fill urgent gaps or support busy projects. So instead of stressing about staffing, you can focus on delivering the job. If you need dependable workers on site, visit romaxsolutions.co.uk to learn more about Romax Solutions, helping construction businesses build, grow and deliver. Thank you. First of all, how did we meet? That's the one I can remember. I'm just wondering if you
How did we meet? It was, was it the first time in Ibiza?
It was, yeah.
It was the first time in Ibiza, wasn't it?
It was a friend's wasn't it?
Ricky's birthday, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. When was that? 5, 6 years ago, maybe?
It was before the pandemic.
It was before the pandemic, yeah. So 19, 18, 19?
Yeah. It was just literally, I think, on the cusp of you starting your business.
Yeah, it probably was, yeah.
Because I remember speaking about it.
Yeah.
And then we had a pandemic situation, so we were in London, didn't we?
Ah, yes,
remember that
did.
one? Yeah,
we did. Went to London, yeah, as the backup plan, wasn't it? That was the anniversary.
The guy tried taking your watch.
Remember
that? Tapping your wrist.
I do remember that very clearly.
Yeah.
Because I sold that watch a couple of weeks after.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because it shipped me up. Yeah, it shipped me up. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I remember you coming in going, and London's known for that. So yeah. But
I was lucky I got it back. Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny, isn't it? Like obviously, with all my guests, we'll talk about how we met, and but obviously, most importantly, this is more about you. So, for me, your upbringing, your childhood, what was school like for you?
School, yeah, it was all right. I didn't particularly enjoy school that much, as in the learning side of it. The kind of early school days, it was hard because these big things I've got on the side of my head.
Yeah, kids can be cruel, can't they?
Kids can be cruel, yeah.
They can. Yeah, they can.
So at first it was kind of trying to fit in with those people and whatever else. And then when I went to high school, it was, look, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of friends in high school. Academically didn't do particularly well at all, but I'm sure when you do these podcasts more, you probably get similar stories. I was the guy that sold the cream eggs. I was the guy that sold the crisps. I was the guy that sold the cigarettes, which I've got a funny story about if you want to hear about that with my dad. School was, I couldn't wait to leave school. Again, the classic, 2 paper rounds.
Yeah.
Selling things in school. I was an ice cream man when I was 14.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I was an ice cream man.
How did you get involved in that?
I think because I had the paper rounds, I always used to look at the jobs.
Right.
So I had a morning round and an evening round. And I remember just always looking for jobs, and I seen the ice cream kind of business were looking for people. And it wasn't far from where I lived, so I remember going down on my bike with the paper. Yeah. Classic. I feel really old saying this.
I know. I was telling my daughter the other day.
Yeah, going down with the paper, and like the 2 owners there, they had, like, one had a red Jag, matching Jags, a blue Jag, like in a dirty old warehouse, ice cream stuff everywhere. And I just rocked up on my bike and said, look, I really want a job. And yeah, they took me on. And then at weekends, I used to go there about 6 a.m, stock all the ice cream vans up.
Oh, wow.
And then they would take an ice cream van with a trailer on the back as well. That ice cream van would take me to a place called New Brighton, which is like a promenade beach area, and dropped me there at like 9 a.m. and then picked me up at like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night.
Like a Mr. Whippy, yeah?
Mr. Whippy, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, Mr. Whippy, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, did that. Yeah, so did that for till I was about 16, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
right. So
it was a big sell with my mum, because my dad in particular, because like when I was going through GCSEs, like I was always working.
Yeah.
And I used to say to my mum and dad, like, you know, I'll take my books and I'll learn.
Didn't? Nah.
Maybe a little, but not a lot. Not a lot.
To be fair, I was very similar myself. I was always on market stalls.
Yeah.
My stepdad had a market stall with my mum. My mum used to sell baby clothes, and never forget it. And every Saturday, Sunday, if I wasn't playing football, I'd be on the market stall. Any school holidays, I'd be grafting. Always grafting, like, you know, always wanted the money, you know, always, you know, kind of out early doors, like 5 in the morning, putting all these cold poles up, you know, was always working with to be fair to my stepdad, the little thing he did give me was the work ethic, you know. I would always say that. I don't want to thank him for too much, but I'd definitely say that he installed the work ethic in me, and very similar to yourself.
It was my mum, actually, because my mum and dad were childhood sweethearts. They were like together in high school, and then my dad went to the Navy when he was 16. I think they married when they were I was born when they were 21, and they divorced a couple of years later. So my dad wasn't in my life for up until I was about 11. We still, like, you know, I used to see him every so often. You know, he was, you know, the Navy was the proper Navy, and then
of course
he went to Iraq and all these various places. So it was my mum, really. It was just me and my mum, and my nan and granddad. My mum was an only child, and so it was my mum, really. She, you know, she'd work in the pub, she'd work in the shoe shop, she worked in retail and stuff. And then I think when I was 16, my first proper job, so to say, was Littlewoods, if you remember Littlewoods.
Yeah, I do.
And me and my mum worked together there on the returns, because we were quite like returns back then was like, have you got your receipt? When did you buy it? You can't have it. You can't have your money back.
Ruthless.
So, ruthless. Yeah. So me and my mum used to work that. So it was more my mum. My dad brought the discipline side, because when he came back, my mum and dad remarried and then had my sister.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
no, a lot of people don't know.
Remarried.
They remarried on Valentine's Day.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
And then had my sister. That's why there's a big age gap between me and my sister. So my dad was more the discipline. Like when he came back, that was a shock. Like, make your bed. Yeah. You know, take your plate. Military. Yeah, I bet. That's good. It was early days were pretty good.
Yeah, Littlewoods. So what age was you at Littlewoods?
Littlewoods, I would have been 16. I think that's when you were allowed to wear, you know, paper rounds, ice cream stuff, and
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy that I've kind of very similar again, you know, and I imagine that we'll go through how similar we are. But I did the same. I like left at 15 with no GCSEs, and I got my first ever job at a place called Lennon, and I put paper on a reel, and it just rotated. And that was my job. That was my job. I think I got £40 a week, and it was costing me 20 on a train. Yeah. But I just had to work. You know, my mum always said to me, if you're going to leave school early, you work. Yeah. And I think that's something that I've, you know, with my girls as well, and, you know, making sure that that's installed in them. You know, they were a little bit more privileged than I was, but that putting that in you, that work ethic, just drives you to where you are now. And I think it's a big thing in having, you know, especially if your dad's a little bit stricter as well. It keeps you regimented as well. Yeah,
he did. He kept me very regimented. The cigarette story, because my mum and dad smoked, and my dad was in. He used to work in Belgium when he come off the ships. Right. So he'd do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and then back then he'd come home the back of the car from France, fags, booze, and whatever else. And I always remember his wardrobe. You know, he used to sell it to friends and family and stuff like that. And I was selling the cream eggs, the crisps, and various things. And then when I got to like kind of 15, people in school were smoking. Right. Well, at the time I never smoked. But in school I never smoked. And then I thought, people are selling fags in school. So I then started nicking a pack a day. Added that to the portfolio of things, so to say. And That was the only time my dad ever laid hands on me. He clocked that the fags were going, and I remember walking in from school, and he collared me against the wall, scruff of the neck. Didn't do anything bad, just scruff of the neck, lifted me up and said, you know, why are you fucking stealing the fags? Are you smoking? Let me smell you. And because he'd like gripped me, I couldn't talk. And then he eventually clocked. I said to him, like, Dad, I'm selling them, like the cream eggs. Yeah. And I remember him just slowly letting me go down the wall. And he looked at my mum, and they both looked at each other, and he went, so you're selling the fags in school? Yeah. And I went, yeah, I promise I'm not smoking. You can smell me, you can do whatever you want. And he went, right, go and have your dinner, we need to have a chat. And then after that, it was like well, you can have X amount a day. I'll bring extra back. He kind of encouraged it in a way.
I love that.
But I never really got in trouble. I think once in school I got in trouble for it. You know, the classic, you know, the blazer, caught with everything in.
That's it.
I say in trouble, it was minor, but yeah, then we had a bit of a system. Avon, I used to do the Avon as well.
Avon, yeah.
I had 4, yeah. My mum did the Avon, me and my mum.
Remember the
Avon?
I'd
go out and do all the catalogues.
That's it.
We used to make a fortune off it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, having that many jobs, and obviously it leads you to where we are.
It must be, yeah, because I don't really talk about this stuff, but you know, when I was thinking about it, when we were, you know, arranged to meet, and I was like, well, that must have something to do with.
It's got to. You
where I am.
I've started listening to a lot of like podcasts myself, and listening to entrepreneurs, you know, and the brain, they just say it works differently from everyone else. In business, for me, I wouldn't say I'm a businessman.
No,
I'm not. And
I hate the E word that you just used.
Yeah, the entrepreneur.
Yeah, people say it.
Yeah.
Again, that's one of the things that makes me a bit uptight. It's like,
well, it's like a craft. And this guy explained it really, really well. And I went Kate last night, and I was like, see, I'm not crazy. Because you think you're crazy where you've got all these ambitions, and they just constantly, I can't sit still. I'm like, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. And it's like spotlights, boom, 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 constantly in my head going bang, bang, bang.
Chip shop and Ibiza.
There we go. And that's a great example. I mean, we'll talk about that as well. I mean,
Chip shop and Ibiza.
But people don't understand is that, and they say exactly the entrepreneur word, but it's the method behind it, or the craziness behind it, is that for me, my brain is going 1,000 times since I've stopped working. I've tried to buy so many things and look at so many different businesses, and what's the best opportunity? What's the less risk? You know, risk is a big thing. But if you don't take risk, you don't. There's no gain really. So, for me, I think a businessman, I'd employ a businessman. Does that make sense? We're talking about staff, and you employ people, don't you, that are good and better than you. They should be. They should be better than you or clever than you.
At what they do, yeah.
At what they do, exactly. So, but going back, we'll go back on that. But I just, I was listening to it. It just come to me when we was just talking about it. But the fish and chip shop, I mean, that's prime example, right?
Yeah, that was a mistake now looking back, and you know, we got mutual friends that were involved in that. The concept was right.
The execution,
it was pretty good, to be fair. We got very unlucky with the COVID situation. Yeah, the COVID, and we launched, and then the Brexit thing had really kicked in, where you know, normal everyday Brits can't just go abroad now.
No.
Like, you know, I used to work in Tenerife with the lads, and you can't do that now. But the big thing that killed it was Putin and the war in Russia, because a lot of the cod was coming from Russia.
I didn't know that.
So the price of cod went up, and the gas and electric. That was another big thing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. That was another big thing that killed it.
Really?
Yeah, that was probably what tipped it over.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a contributing factor.
Yeah, it's a good location, mate.
The location was perfect. If you know Ibiza and you know the Egg Roundabout and the Pasha shop.
I imagine a lot of listeners would know.
Yeah, everyone knows the Egg Roundabout in San Antonio. Yeah, so location-wise, you know, there was a hotel above. That was another factor as well why we started it. It's just been renovated, but it was delayed a bit because of COVID. And it was a British hotel, even though it was all-inclusive. The thought was, well, they'll want something different rather than just, you know, the all-inclusive food. I think we were, I think you said about execution, I think, you know, looking back, you'd always do things a bit differently, but we did in such a short space of time. And when you looked at the shop, you know, and again, some people think when you start a business, let's get brand new this, brand new that. The counter, I went to Blackburn and found one on eBay, and it was $5,000.
Right.
It was $5,000. It was, you know, it was in pieces. I've still got pictures of it.
Oh,
It was
really?
in pieces on the floor. I sent it to the lads, and they were like, "Are you fucking sure?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know what a fryer is."
No.
He tells me it's in good nick because I was in transport. I could get it over there, you know. But you know, some people think, you know, well, let's buy brand new, but we didn't. And we got it over there, and you know, the boys over there have obviously got contacts, and they got it in, and they changed the shape of it, and they reused bits and added bits, and it was $5,000 that. And you remember the shop? It looked.
I do. Yeah, it was lovely.
It was wicked, wasn't it?
You would never have known.
No, you would never have known.
And like the location was prime. I mean, like you said, your network out there. You know, we know them. So the network's right.
Yeah.
It was just literally.
I think it was just timing. We were just unlucky. I think it was just a bit unlucky. Yeah.
So what happened? Did you just?
We sold it. Yeah.
Sold it.
Yeah. We sold it just in time.
And did you make a loss?
Before it would have been catastrophic.
Was it a loss?
Yeah, there was a loss.
Yeah.
There was a loss. But it could have been a lot worse.
A learning curve.
It was definitely a learning.
You get them on the way. I think I've had a few myself, but you sit there and you kind of go, well, if it was now, you'd probably be a little bit more. And also, you need luck.
You do need a bit of luck.
You do.
Yeah, you do. And look, if that was my first venture, you know, I wouldn't have done it. You know, it was one of them. You know, me and the lads have been talking for some time about, you know, we got similar interests. You know, running different businesses.
Yeah.
We get on.
Yeah.
Which is not also a good recipe if you're friends with someone in business.
Very difficult.
That can be hard as well. But I think even through the tough times, you know, we didn't fall out. No, we didn't fall out, and even, you know, to the point where it came to the sale. Again, a lot of people don't know this. You know, there was the people involved. There was an equal split.
Brilliant.
But again, everyone has a different role. Without going into detail, everyone has a different role in maybe putting more in than others. And even when it come to the sale, because we were mates, we were like, look, we'll take the hit equally in terms of how it was. So you know.
I know them.
Quite easily,
great guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
They're very close with both, and quite easily they could have gone, well, you know, that's my share.
Yeah,
that's my loss. That's my share. That's my loss. But they didn't.
And that's really rare. That's really rare, because I think over a pound note, people are funny, you know. And I think experiences again is that I've experienced, you know, the change in people when you do. You know, I've never had anything all my life, and I don't really like talking about what I've got and what I haven't got, but I think that is very rare. Like,
it's very rare. That could have broke a friendship.
Yeah, 100%.
But there was never in any doubt of that.
No. And do you think that's a lesson learned as well, where you go into business with friends as well?
Even with some of my staff now at HBC over the years, you know, you get very, very close to them, and I've got friends now at work, and you know, again, probably we'll talk about it, but there was, you've got to be careful how close you get to staff. Well, that's one thing I've changed over the past few years. Is I'm still close.
Yeah.
But not.
There's that line.
Not too close, because there was a scenario where it got a bit difficult at HBC at one point. Yeah.
So going back to obviously your earlier years, obviously you went to Tenerife, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you'd left school, you'd done your job.
Left school, went to college, failed at college. Yeah. Tried to get into kind of sport. This is how uneducated I am.
Yeah.
When I went to college, it was a very relaxed type of college. Not one of the better ones, and it was sports science. And I remember failing the first kind of module, and the teacher there, he was great. And it was only a small class, maybe 20, and about half was failed. And I never forget when we went to resit, he had like a whiteboard, and he wrote A =1. It was all multi-choice questions.
Right.
And he wrote them down on the board, flipped the board over and walked out, and he said, but no one can get 100%. If you get 100%, I'll fail you. Yeah? And I'm sitting there, result
I could have done with a few teachers like that.
Classic me, not paying attention.
Oh, no.
So got the first 3 or 4 right, and then the 5th question, I skipped the answer. So I got it in the wrong order.
Right.
I was the only person that failed, and the answers were on the board.
Oh, no.
The answer was on the board,
Not
so
paying
I failed.
attention.
Not paying attention. I had the answers literally
Wow.
there. And he came in, hands on his head. He's like,
Oh, my God.
I fucking wrote the answers down, and I can't not change it now.
Oh, no.
So I could have stayed on, but I would never have passed. So then, I finished college and kind of done various other bits of, when I left college, that would have been 17.
Right.
And my dad said, right, military.
Did he?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know.
No.
I was in the military. And he said, go in the RAF, better paid, and you get looked after a bit. Yeah. So me and my pal, we joined the RAF, went through the training, passed that. Then I was going through the kind of trade training. And then that's when my mum got unwell, which you know about. Yeah. She got seriously unwell with terminal cancer. So I came out the RAF against my mum's wishes, but I did.
18?
I was 18. Yeah, I was 18 when I come out the RAF. They did leave the door open, and there was maybe half a thought of going back, but what was going on with my mum at home, I just got a job as a delivery driver, and just to make ends meet, and then my.
It was difficult times, obviously.
It was, yeah.
Mum,
it was,
and someone that you obviously, like myself, look up to, and a bit of a massive role model in your life, and that hole is never, and even now you can tell, how much it means, even talking about it from how long ago it was. And if you don't mind me asking, is obviously from the minute your mum found out to the minute she passed, how long was she fighting?
So it was around 15, 16, but she got 6 months to live. She did have cancer previous to that, which we thought she'd overcome, but again, misdiagnosed, let's say. But she lived about just after her 40th birthday. She passed away.
So young.
Yeah.
So young, and the thing is, we the cancer. I mean, there's so many people that we know, and it's just cruel. It's just cruel, and being so young, Ben, that doesn't help either.
No, it doesn't.
It's never easy, no matter what age you are. But being so young is.
Well, it's mad, because death, it's horrible for anyone, and even it's coming. Someone tells you that person is going to die, still doesn't make it any easier. One bit to someone dropping dead to
I agree.
Spending time. It's probably, looking back, for me, it's probably worse, because you look back at it now and think, well, could I have not gone out that night? Could I have not seen my mates that night? Could I have not gone to football that night? So there's a little bit that does eat up on you, and think, well, but I do remember, my mum saying, even when she got really ill, there was a party on one of my mates' birthdays, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to go, and she very firmly told me that I was to go. Back then it was, I don't know how I used to do it, even in Tenerife, but it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and she used to say, you still go, you don't change what you're doing. So it was tough, man.
Hard time.
I was 19.
19, and that's no age at all, and obviously your mum being so young as well, that's no age either. It's just, honestly, it's one of the coolest. It's hard to explain, because I've been in the same situation. And my mum was, I was a little bit older than you. I think I was 23, so around that time. And like you say, even now, you accept it, but there's part of you that's missing, and you'll never get it back. And I think that's the best way to explain it, is that you'll never get that full how you felt. Then you'll never get that back. Time helps, and we talk about, people come to me quite a lot, because obviously experiences, and you always say, just give it time. I can't give you any words of wisdom. This is about how you deal with it, and time. And
exactly what I say.
And I think that's the only advice you can. It's difficult. It's a really difficult subject. It's a really, everyone deals with grief totally different. There isn't a one, a book that how you should deal with it. And yeah, I think, look, like I say, but you've obviously, you never stop thinking about her, and that will never happen. You can tell by even your expressions. But obviously, after that, you go back in.
No, didn't join the RAF.
Okay.
I kind of, as I said, I became a delivery driver, and then it was one of my customers I used to deliver to. Do you remember Churchill's, the Nodding Dog, the insurance company?
Oh yes.
They had their own repair centres, and there was a job going there, so got on really well with them. Took a job there. That's when my dad moved to Spain from there. So that was tough because, I was on my own then. My nan and granddad were still around. They were like my mum and dad as well. But again, because, just salary money was tight living on my own. And it was about an hour's drive. So then there was fuel. So I moved to a place called Winsford, which is like by Crewe, which is where it was based. So it was, say, about 45, 50 minutes from where I grew up. But I thought that was the right thing to do because of money, but I was on my own. Right. I hated it.
Right, yes.
And so far after, so short after losing my mum, and I lived there for about 4 months and then managed to room share with one of my pals to make ends meet. So I just kind of travelled. I was in probably my first relationship then that broke down, and I always wanted to go travelling. So when that relationship broke down, I think I was 20, and I thought, right, it's now or never. So I kind of planned the whole Australia thing with all the lads. Handed my notice in at work, and then the big boss of that company, there was a lot of Scousers and Manx. Right. He was like a proper Manc that hated Scousers.
Yeah, you guys don't get on.
I don't. There's something you see it in the football world. Yeah,
in football world.
And I don't know if it is as bad now. I think with some of my mates it is, but I just couldn't really see it back then. But he hated me. But because I'd planned the Australia trip for the summer, it was around January.
You're right.
So I put my notice in for like 5 months.
Yeah.
One, to help my boss out, my supervisor, because it was quite a specialist role in parts and stuff, to give him a bit of time to get a replacement. And I handed the notice in, and then 2 days later...
Oh, no, nice.
And he went, I don't like you.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm sat there, I was only 19, 20 or whatever. I was trying to bite my lip. I could have very easily just gone back, but I didn't. Yeah. And he said, "You're leaving today." And I said, "But I can't leave today. I'm not going until summer." And he went, "Well, good for you, but bad for me is because you've put it in writing, it's been accepted. We have to pay you until your notice period."
Oh, right.
So I kind of paused and went, "So I'm leaving today?" He went, "Yeah." And I said, "You're paying me for 5 months?"
Oh.
And he went, "Yeah." And I just went, "Thanks, mate."
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Got up, went downstairs. My boss, my supervisor was fuming. So I had five months off. So
dream.
I was just, I started going to car auctions, buying and selling cars a bit, and then one of my best mates in Liverpool, his uncle is Nigel Brown, who we both know, right? Yeah. Who I now call Uncle. Yeah. And again, he said, "Well, look, you've got this stopgap. He owns a bar in Tenerife. Yeah. Why don't you go to Tenerife until you go to Australia?" So I went, "Good idea." So I went to Tenerife. My mate Doco came with me, and we went on a 2-week holiday. I got settled in, and Nigel sorted me out a job, and that's how I ended up in Tenerife, and obviously met George Links and James, and obviously Nigel, Ross. Yeah, and they were all
Ricky.
Met Ricky there.
Yeah.
That's how the friendship formed with Ricky, and so I was there for, I think it was about 5 months, and then when the Australia thing come, it was around the July time, well into the summer of Tenerife. I was loving it, and I didn't want to go because there were 6 lads going to Australia. 6 became 5, 4. Yeah. And then there was only 2 of us that went. So, but it was all paid for.
Oh, okay.
So I thought I'll go
You got
and
very
see how I
good.
go.
Yeah.
So I went to Australia, still in the party vibe, still in the party mood, and I lasted about 6 weeks
Did you?
in Australia. I had a 12-month visa, but I lasted.
And why was that?
Ran out of money.
Yeah.
So I was just partying. We bought a car. We did quite a lot of good stuff in that time. You know,
Where'd you go?
We started at Sydney and I finished in Brisbane. That's as far as I got. So between there, and then when the money ran out, I remember we were staying in like private-ish hostels, and because the money was running out, we got to Brisbane and we were in this big, massive one, and it was like 40 people, like shagging and farting and whatever else. And I was like, I can't stay here.
Yeah, it's not a bit of me.
Went down to the hostel and said, like, is there any jobs? And they said, yeah, it's a really good job, sweeping a warehouse. And I went, I can't fucking sweep a warehouse. No disrespect to, I just, you know, and I went back to my mate and I said, I'm going. The lads, Dan and Spud, you know, my now best mates, they said, look, there's a job here. Come back. We've got a bed. So literally that morning, I went straight to Emirates. I had an open ticket and said, Tenerife, please, and went Singapore. Quickly went home, see my nan and granddad, and then
back to
Tenerife, and I was there for 2.5 years after that, give or take.
What, just working behind a bar?
Yeah, so I worked in Leonardo's with Dan and Spud for a bit.
Leonardo's, yeah.
And then that's when I started playing football with George and James and Licks, and got very pally with them. And James probably regrets it now. James, hello. But he saw something in me and said, you need to come and work behind the bar at Lineker's. Yeah. And that was the job then. Like, you know, I'm probably at best a 2 out of 10, but as soon as you put a Lineker's t-shirt on, you were just like something else. So I worked behind the bar at Lineker's, and then did that for about 6 months. And then that's where everyone knew Lineker's. Yeah, it was the bar to go. That was wicked. And then I came home for a few months between Jan and March, and then that's when Nigel called me up and said that there's an opportunity with Bonkers, because Bonkers had closed. And they were going to move it to what people know as Pleasure Island. Yeah. And he said, come back and you can run it. Right. Run the bar.
So you went back?
Went back, yeah, and ran Bonkers for a year. Yeah. And then, again, I was in another relationship, decided to come back to the UK properly, didn't really settle. Then spoke to Spud, I say my best mate, one of my best mates now, he was running it, and Nigel was Nigel. Yeah. And said, look, the DJ's going. Spud's obviously running it now. You two are very close. We come and be the DJ. Yeah, so went back. Very excited. I was only with Nigel last week actually at the football. We had a bit of a fallout, quite a big fallout, which we spoke about years ago and sorted out, obviously, because we've been very close since. But it's the first time we've been 1-to-1.
And all good.
And we had he was going through a Nigel time. That's probably for a story for him. You should get him on here.
Yeah, I will.
He'd have some stories to tell you.
I will. He's class.
But more than 2 hours though.
I was about to say he can talk, but
and went back and me and Nigel had a bit of a spat, let's say. So I was only there a month. That was quite a tough time now because I kind of dropped everything again to go back. And the boys were very good to me, in particular James. Yeah, again, James's annoying mate, as he will call it, right?
I remember.
He probably baffles himself now why we're still mates, but he was very good to me then, very good. Like, because he didn't agree with kind of that situation that went on. Tried to convince me to stay. There was another guy, Chris. Remember Chris that run, what was the bar? I forget Chris's surname.
No, I don't.
You will know Chris.
Will I?
Yeah. He was also very, very good. But yeah, because it was quite a sour situation, we just said, look, we'll go back. I was with a partner then. We went back to Birmingham.
Oh, you went back?
Yeah, went back to Birmingham. And then that's when I got into logistics.
Yeah, and like I say, I mean, to explain to people including myself, is logistics. So explain to me what is logistics.
It's strange because my new owners now kind of call me Mr. Same Day, Mr. This, and I keep saying Wolves. Like, don't call me that. Logistics has grown massively over the past kind of probably 10 years more. So there's specifically what we do is same day dedicated transport. That's what we started. Yeah. But you've got your traditional overnight parcels and pallet network stuff that we do, dedicated loads. Storage and fulfillment now is growing rapidly, where businesses will store with the logistics company and they handle the whole kind of supply chains from goods coming from the Far East. We'll unpack them in, put them on pallets, wrap them, put them in, put the inventory in, put them on the system. And the orders come through, and then we pick, pack, and distribute out. So there's all kinds of.
How did you even get into that then? So
that was from the Tenerife. When I come back, I always liked driving. Don't know why, but I've always just liked driving. So when I come back, I obviously I needed to get a job. So I thought, I'll look at taxi driving. So I looked at taxi driving, and I was 24.
Right.
And you need to be 25.
Right.
So that ruled that out.
Right. Yeah.
And then I seen a courier driver ad. So I applied for that. That was in Liverpool. We moved to Liverpool and did the interview. And he said, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 24." He said, "How old are you?" I said, I'm 24. And he said, "Oh, you need to be 25 with the insurance." He said, "When are you 25?" And it was maybe 6 months, something like that. And he said, "Oh, I can't take you on. I can't insure you."
No.
And I was gutted.
Yeah, I bet.
And I remember leaving. And the next day, I went back, drove back, and I just pleaded and said, "Look, I'll be really good." I said, "You can take more money. There must be a way to insure me." And they liked me and said, "Okay," and they paid the extra to insure me.
Oh, fair play.
Yeah, because I went back. So I started as a parcel courier driver in Liverpool. It was a company called Fastway Couriers. Did that. I was doing around for about 6 months, and then a warehouse job came up, and again I started doing that, bit of driving, bit of warehouse. Then just kind of progressed through that company there. Yeah. Again, that
you get it.
Cliche, classic story of I was a courier driver.
Yeah.
And, even saying it now, when I talk to some people, I do, like, some of the staff go, "Of course you were.
Of course you were.
Of course you were.
Of course you were."
Yeah,
well, they only see what you've got. And that they don't see the journey.
They only see what you've got. They don't see the journey.
They don't see this. They don't hear this. They will, but they don't understand. They've never asked, probably, some of them. But it's exactly the same as me. Learn from the bottom, and kind of you are where you are now. So obviously, you're then doing the warehouse. You're in the warehouse.
Yeah.
How long was you in there for?
Did that again for another 6 months, and again the partner at the time I had, she was from Birmingham.
Right.
She wasn't settling in Liverpool.
No.
And then a branch opened in Birmingham. Again, because it was a franchise business, it wasn't like you could progress or transfer. No. But the master franchisee, Fastway, kind of said to the owners of Birmingham, "Look, there's this guy that wants to move to Birmingham. He's pretty good. He can drive, he can warehouse, he could probably progress through. He knows the ins and outs." And when these franchises started, you'd only have like maybe 2 or 3 of the master franchise people come in to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So no one really knew the systems or how the operation worked. And they kind of, I wouldn't say forced him, but said, "Look, you got to take him." So I went down and had an interview, and he said, "Right, okay, you can be a courier and we'll see where it goes." And I was like, but I've kind of, I think I was a supervisor or something, but it was only a very small operation, right? I said, "I've got a bit more to give, but look, I want to move to Birmingham. I'll earn my stripes again and I'll become a courier."
Yeah.
And I remember I started on the first day when the operation went live, and it was just madness. It was the biggest one at the time. It was the biggest. Again, not as big as what I run now, but it was 4 times as big as what I was used to in Liverpool. Yeah. And I could just remember it was just chaotic. They had all these managers and supervisors, and the owner who bought the franchise was someone I'd like to talk about. He was from IBM. like really high, wealthy man that risked everything to buy this franchise. So there was managers, and I was like, oh my God, this is fucking mental. So for 2 weeks, I just was sorting things out. And I never forget, it was a lunchtime, and Peter, the guy I was talking about there, he came down, he was like, he went, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm just sorting customer service, I was sorting the runs out, you know, this and this. He went, but I employed you as a courier, why aren't you a courier? Why aren't you out? You need to go out. And I was like, oh, okay. And tail between my legs, just there was a route on the floor, there was a spare van. I jumped in the van and went out, and I was a bit disheartened. I was really disheartened.
I bet.
Because I'd just done 2 weeks, so many people and whatever else. You know, I'm not saying I was the saviour, but
no, but you helped.
I definitely helped. And people were saying like they would have been screwed if I wouldn't have been there. So I went out, and then the next morning I came in, just kept myself to myself, did a run, all the managers, like these ops managers and all these people that were a lot older than me. I was only 25 maybe. No, I was a bit older, maybe 27. And like, you can't go out, I need help with this, I don't know what I'm doing. And I said, well, look, Peter's come down. And then one of the master franchisee staff, like one of the area managers, said like, Ben, what the fuck are you doing? I said, well, Peter's told me I'm a courier, so I'm a courier. I loaded my van up, and literally, I'll never forget it, went to drive out. And then Peter ran out the office and stood in front of the van and went, stop. And I was like, you all right? He said, can you just pull the van up and come up to my office? Anyway, without boring everyone too much, went up to his office, and he was super apologetic. He said he didn't realise what I was doing.
Right.
Without what I was doing, his business and the operation would have been screwed. Obviously, head office must have said something to him. I think I was on about 20 grand then as a courier. And he said, look, he apologised, and he said, look, I want you to be this, I can't remember what the title was, some kind of franchise manager, but still help with the operation. And he said, I'm going to give you 25 grand a year and a bit of a fuel allowance. 5 grand then was literally like, I was like,
massive.
I was like, wow, thank you. And from there, like, me and him just got on like a house on fire, and I just very quickly went bum, 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 bum.
And did you learn much from him?
A huge amount.
Yeah.
He was a big inspiration to me, and unfortunately another victim of the dreaded. He was early 40s, I think. Again, my relationship broke down. He lived in Reading. He had like an apartment in Birmingham. He'd stay there a couple of days a week and travel. I had nowhere to live. He said I could go and live there.
Right.
Rent-free.
Nice.
In the spare room.
Nice.
But back then, I don't, my wife will laugh at this, I don't eat particularly well. I'm a bit better.
Well, still?
Yeah, I'm a bit better now, but like fruit and veg and stuff. And like Peter, he like started to force me to eat decent meals, because I just eat takeaways all the time. And he was inspirational for me. He was, he was a really good man. Yeah. He was someone like square peg round hole with me. He was like so he was on, 6-figure salaries at IBM and looked after Russia and Ukraine, and here's me, just this kid that just looking after his business. I was his ops manager, and I was his number 2. You say about inspirational stuff. He was the first geezer that sat down to me and said, like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to be? What do you want? And I said, the Range Rovers had just come out. I said I was 27 or whatever. I said, I'd really one day want a Range Rover. That's it. And he kind of gave me a bit, well, you've got to work hard and all the usual stuff. And a couple of days later, I came in, and on my desk was a little toy Range Rover with a bow on it. Yeah. Which I've still got on my desk.
Have you?
Still got on my desk now.
Oh,
again, very
brilliant,
corny, cheesy type story, but it's on my desk now. And he said, if you want your Range Rover, here you go. Put it on my desk.
Crazy.
This little toy Range Rover.
That's crazy. But and we, like, going on that is, I was going to get to that, is that out of business, would you say he was the most influential in your journey?
I think he he was the one that gave me the chance.
Yeah.
You know, there was no interview. There was no, well, there was to be a courier driver,
Yeah.
but there was no CV. What were your grades? What were you, you know?
No.
You know, none of that. He, you know, I learned so much from him because, you know, he was in a very big job, as I said, and again, I've never talked about this, so, but I would probably say he was.
Yeah.
He was the one that, you know, just that little thing with the car and whatever else kind of maybe installed something in me to say, well, one day you could run a logistics firm, or you could build a logistics firm, maybe.
It's mad how those little things that you do remember, but forget, but you remember really, is that I had the same kind of, like, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anyone that I probably ever looked. I think that was the bit that was missing. But I did have a dream. And I remember going to my business partner, like, one day we'll have Range Rovers. You know, I'll never forget that. And that was all I ever focused on, you know, and I really did focus on that. Like, you know, I wanted it. Now, I look back now, does it really matter? No, because I'm a lot older and a lot wiser. But it was my focus to get me there.
Yeah, but it was the same when you were saying about in school with the cream eggs. I really wanted a scooter. I really wanted the Berghaus. I really wanted the Rockport, the Scousers, and we couldn't afford it.
No.
We just couldn't afford it. So, yeah, again,
it drives you.
It drives you to...
I totally agree with it. And do you know what? I talk about it, obviously, with my wife quite a lot, and friends, you know, like, about my experiences of how, like, I used to think all the time, I want this, I want that, and things used to start appearing. And I know it's a really weird thing to say, a bit corny, but I started listening to a lot of podcasts or a lot of audio books, and I listened to The Secret. And from my experiences, you know, I set up my business and I sent out letters every week, and then look, you know, and I'll openly admit that I'm massively dyslexic, and you know, reading and writing was always hard, really hard for me. And I used to send out these letters. I'd love to get one of those letters now. And I used to send them out. I'd love to read what it is. And I used to send them out every week while I was working for another business. And I'd send them out constantly, 100 letters. And my wife would help me. We'd get stamps and we'd send them off. And then one day we got a bite, and then we got another bite, and then we got another bite. And then we forwards that on to 13 years later. And I had a handwritten letter on my PC. And you don't open your own mail. It's a real weird thing, isn't it? I mean, you stop opening your own mail, and it was a letter, and it was a broker for offering to buy my business, or wanted to meet the person to buy the business. And I'll never forget it. I wouldn't have opened that letter if it weren't handwritten. And everyone asks me about advice, and I always give them that advice. I always say, handwrite a letter. And they go, yeah, but those days are gone. I go, they're not. They're really not gone. I said, I think it's probably one of the most underrated ways of how to start a business is handwritten letters. Inside, it doesn't need to be handwritten, but the envelope needs to be handwritten, because people will think it's personal. So they open it up.
I think that'll come back around again.
I hope
that cycle is going to come back round, because now, obviously with AI and everything now, you can kind of, it probably helps the likes of me and you, because I'm similar to you in terms of spelling and various other things, but it's now glaringly obvious that if you were to send me an email from AI, I'd go, fuck off, you've not read that. Same for me. But I think that cycle will come round, and even talking to some of our customers now is, you know, look, there's obviously a place for AI and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do believe from a sales cycle, I talked to the sales team recently, because he started using AI, and I'm like, don't just stick to the raw personal format.
Yeah, hearing that a lot.
Yeah,
and I think that's true. I mean, I have to use AI. And I'm glad it's really good for me, because my spelling is atrocious. Yeah. And I mean, I get the blocks where I can't even think, you know, and my reading's a lot better than it's ever been. And I've learned that myself, you know, no one's ever taught me that. It was more sink or swim. Yeah. You know, like, I've got to learn a PC. You know, imagine I was an engineer, a bit like yourself, you know, you're working in a van, and then suddenly you've got a PC stuck in front of you, and you've got to then be good at that. You know, you've got all these emails that are coming in. You've got people. You know, you have to adapt. And I think that's something that I had to adapt. And again, we'll touch on this, is that using people, you know, one of my strengths is people. You know, like if you said to me, you know, what's your super strength? You know, your power, and I'll go, well, people. You know, I like working with people. That's for me. So, like, I have a lot of smarter people around me. That
Likewise.
Yeah, and I think that's what we touch on. But going back to logistics, and you then going, right, you're now, what was it, a franchise?
It was a franchise,
yeah, Peter, yeah. So, yeah.
That kind of next step then from Peter was that relationship broke down. I still had the relationship in Liverpool. Liverpool was really struggling, and the two owners up there, ironically called Dave and Steve, which were my partners at HBC, they said, look, we'll bring you in as a director, we'll give you 20%, but it's failing. We've got 6 months. So it was like, you know, it was mad. So, but because I was kind of on a bit of a radar with head office, the master franchise, it was frowned upon to take franchisees, member of staff to the master franchise, because then say you're the franchisee and I'm working at head office and I take your best guy or girl, you'd be like, what the fuck? Like, you can't do that.
You can't do it, yeah.
So I spoke to him about it because I was very close with the MD, and he said, look, he said, it'll be a great opportunity. He said, go and take that. If it fails, we will take you into head office, because that will gain your experience there of trying to turn it round. And I was like, but look, if it fails, then I come and work for you. People go, and they said, no, people know Liverpool is failing within the network now.
It's already failing.
So it'll be hopefully a positive that you went to try and help, even if it didn't work. So anyway, I moved, relationship broke down, moved back to Liverpool. I dotted between. I lived with my dad on the sofa Monday, Thursday, and I still kept my place in Birmingham and travelled back to Birmingham because that was kind of home then. So went up to Liverpool, became a director, and again, long story short, managed to turn it round. Again, it was just bits that I'd learned from Birmingham, bits about what they were not doing. And it was, again, I was only kind of 28, 29 maybe. And these guys were late 40s, early 50s looking at me going, but like, you know,
what do we do?
Can you replicate what you've done in Birmingham here? And there was no...
It's pretty impressive though. When you sit back and reflect on it.
It's mad when you look back and say, don't talk,
no.
talk about it. But again, that's...
Being so young.
Yeah. And again, it was nothing, you know, I don't think I did anything, you know, kind of strategy or business plan.
No.
Never did any of that. Even the business plan with HBC, which we'll talk about, was on paper. I think it was the people thing. I just... One, you talk about people that inspired me. Do you remember Christian Lee? Did you meet Christian Lee, as he's known in Tenerife?
No.
So he used to, I forget Lee's surname, but he was a Georgian links will know who he is, and he had like a place, and he was, you know, bang on it in Tenerife. Then just found God, and then we used to play pool there. It was by the McDonald's. We used to play pool, and Lee used to run it, and you know, play pool, and you know, even have a drink and have a party. But he didn't drink, and then he'd try and talk to you about God, but in a very... It's like me and you becoming Christians now. We wouldn't be like, we'd talk about it in a way, and that's what he did. And I remember him saying, like, you'd be good at sales. And then, when I went to Liverpool, I said, like, what you doing with the sales? We need to grow the sales. And in logistics, that, you know, you have a trailer of parcels going to a hub, which then goes somewhere else. And it was not even half full. I said, we need to fill it. We need to fill it. And they said, well, we can't. I said, well, how are you doing it? And they, you know, and I just said, look, well, we need to drop a bit price there. Yeah. And it was again, we'll fast forward in a bit, but it's kind of against how I sell now. But at the time, it was price. It was just undercutting because it was maybe the strategy was, well, we're going to go bust. So instead of selling it for £5 a parcel, we'll sell it £4.50 a parcel.
Yeah.
Because if we fill the trunk, it's just money that's going on the trunk.
Yeah, it's more.
It's just revenue going on the trunk.
Revenue,
and that's what I did. So I went round to all these opportunities that we hadn't won and said, well, what have we got to do to win your business? Well, you need to be cheaper. Okay, we're cheaper.
Let's go.
Bang. And then we filled the trunk. And then the trunk became 2. So that's kind of how we
and
got
there's a
out
lesson
of
there.
it.
There is a lesson. I like, you know, some people say don't, you know, price yourself to the bottom. But you were failing.
That
right?
scenario. And
Yeah,
again, more people have probably been in that situation.
Yeah.
That's not the only solution to get out of when you're in trouble. But that at that time,
that's a dig deep, that is.
It was. Well, all the costs were fixed.
Yeah,
The warehouse was fixed, the people were fixed, the trunk, and it was just running fresh air. So if you put money on it, then yes, the margin's a bit less.
Well, there was no strategy.
No. It was just that was the scenario we were in. And maybe because it was do or die, that it was like, well, again, looking back on it now, it's like, well, nothing to lose. Like, you know, just gotta go and sell, and that's what we did. And it turned around. That was over about
Give me 2 seconds of your time. Again, thank you for your help. This really makes a big difference and truly can't be done without you. I've been overwhelmed by the support given so far. Please, if I can ask one thing, is to follow and share. We all know mental health is a massive part in all of our lives, and I know most of you have probably had to deal with it in your own lives. I just wanted to reach out to you, the audience, to make sure we all have a part to play in the following statement. Grief and pain are heavy, and sometimes it feels like you're on your own, but you're not. If you're struggling, please know there are people out there that care and want to listen. Opening up isn't easy, but talking can help. You really matter. Your feelings matter. Reach out, whether it's a friend, a family, or a support line. Let's break the silence around mental health. You're not alone, and together we can get through this. I would also like to add, think about what you say to others, because it can truly have an effect on their well-being. Social media platforms must do better to detect the vulnerability of people's mental health. If you can take anything out of today, please be better. It's nice to be nice. Thank you.
a 12-month period.
Yep.
And then the end for that came it was quite a sad end, actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, because we went away for Christmas. Logistics is typically the only time that you can really relax over Christmas, in most, not all of logistics. But anyway, took Christmas off, came back in the January. And at that point, that's, again, it's just coming to me now because I'm talking to you about it. That's maybe where the bit of growth from me, I was like, well, we can expand into Chester. There's an opportunity for a franchise there. And we talked about it before Christmas, and, you know, the businesses started making a bit of money and whatever else. I came back in the January, sat down with the Dave and Steve at Fastway, and they went, like, last 12 months, honestly, like, we want to thank you. Like, it's been brilliant, but stop. I mean, what do you mean stop? We're quite happy now with this 5, 6, 7 grand a month profit. Stop. Okay. We don't want to grow anymore. We don't want to expand into Chester. We don't want to do this.
Oh, wow.
We're quite happy now. We're going to maintain this. Yeah. Well, you know, if we get new customers, great. And I'm like, are you fucking mad?
Yeah.
Like,
there's an opportunity.
And we had not a bad fallout, but like, I was like, you know, I've blood, sweat and tears over the last year to get it up, to be then told to just stop. Now, there was some perks with that. It was, well, I reduced how many hours I was doing. I was doing like 12-hour Monday, Thursday, and then driving back to Birmingham Thursday evening and whatever else. But they said, look, you know, we'll give you a bit more of a pay rise, Ben. We can take some dividends, and didn't even know what dividends was then.
No.
And you know, there's a few more perks we can do, but just let's enjoy it, Ben. You know, we'll stop. And I went, no. And I stormed out the meeting. not aggressively,
No.
not bad. I just said,
No.
you're fucking wrong. And I
Yeah.
got in my car, drove to Birmingham, I literally had 2 phones then, turned the work one off and just went missing for about, I don't know, I think it was a good week. Easy, just turned the phone off. Yeah, just
Really, it hurt.
and just went out. I don't know what it was. It must have hurt. It must have. I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest with you, because I had no right just to get up and go fuck you. And like I didn't even think.
Could you imagine one of your employees doing that to you?
Oh, I know. I think I got onto the phone to head office and kind of ranted and said, "Look, they want to stop. They don't want to do Chester now. I'm fucking pissed off." So there must have been that opportunity for me to go to head office, because I'm not that daft. I wouldn't have just gone like,
Yeah, of course.
fuck you, I'm off. And then kind of went back. It must have been 2 weeks later. And they were apologetic, but they said, look, I was 20% and they were the 80%, 40. And they said, look, this is what we want to do. It's nothing personal, Ben. No. We're not as ambitious as you. Maybe it's time for you to go to head office, because we know they want. You can go with our blessing, or you can stay and reap the benefits here. I said, I don't want to do that. So I then took the job with the head office. Yeah. Ceased being a director. Looking back now, I didn't even think. No. Didn't even know. I was like, I could have just stayed there. They offered me more money, dividend, a new car. I was like, no, I don't want to do it. And then I took the job at the head office.
And where was head office?
That was based in Milton Keynes. And that was like a fancy title. But it was then supporting all the franchisees. That was my job.
Okay.
But it was a bit of a, it was kind of positioned to help the franchisees and sprinkle my learnings and help them grow. Cool. It wasn't. It was firefighting, and it was tick box. Yeah. Are they wearing the uniform? Are they wearing the Fastway brand? Bit like what McDonald's do, right? Make franchise stuff, right? Yeah. But I took when I got the job, I'd agreed like 2 weeks off because I was going on holiday. And a couple of days in, they called me and said the Northampton branch, they've turned Monday morning. All the couriers have turned up, and there's a sign on the door saying business closed. You need to go. Can you go now? What? Yeah. So that was my first day on the job with the master franchise of Fastway, and went to Northampton, and Jesus, was that an experience. My first day, because then it's the first time I'd wore a suit, a Fastway suit, proper awful suit with Fastway on, the tie. Turned up, and literally a courier grabbed me round the neck, and 2 others were trying to beat me up. What? Because the way the franchise model worked, the couriers would buy the franchise from the area franchising. Right, okay. So if you had Northampton, you were the owner. Yeah. You'd sell a franchise to me around for 10 grand, and the next one 10 grand. And he'd just close the doors, and there was 5 franchisees that had been there a month, and he took 10 grand off me. Yeah, taken 10 grand each. They have no idea. Oh my God. No idea. So, my God. Did he ever get caught? Do you know? Don't know. No. Yeah. That's unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, there's full of them. They're around, aren't they? Yeah. They are around. So, So your first day. That was my first day there. Nice. And then to kind of not dwell too much on that, kind of went in there, did okay. And that was 2008. And that's when the big recession come. Yeah. And to kind of finish the Fastway story, Fastway got in trouble as a master franchise. All the franchisees were kicking off saying, we're going bust, there's no support. Right. And we had a meeting in a hotel in Milton Keynes. All the franchisees come. I was one of 3 on the leadership team. And the owner then, he was an Aussie guy, multi-millionaire, lived in Monaco. Yeah. Nice. And he just stood up and went, I don't fucking need this shit. Oh, wow. He just stood up and went, I don't need this shit. We're closed. And I waited for him. And I was like, I remember sitting there, going, you tell him. I had a soft spot for the franchisees because it was like, but I was a bit like, because some of them were idiots. And then we kind of went out, and then it just dawned on me, I went, fuck, I ain't got a job. Well, yeah, and that was it. And what year was that? That's how Fastway, bam, stop. So again, I think it was around the September time, because it was globally owned. It wasn't a very big franchise operation, but it originated from Australia. And they said, look, Ben, we'll pay you for the next 6 months. You just that they agreed that the franchisees could run the UK.
Right, okay.
So they got what they wanted.
Yeah.
So it was 50, 40 of them that would run the UK between them. But he said, can you just be the point for Australia, just to make sure they're not going too rogue. They're going to go rogue, but not too rogue. But they paid me. That was the easiest 6 months of my life there.
Nice.
I just got paid and just...
Nice.
Yeah. And then, but I knew there was an end.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, there was an end. And then the next part was...
Yeah, your 6 months, obviously, you've seen that out. Yeah, 2008, and then we...
Yeah, and then that ended.
Sorry. Yeah.
I was on okay money.
Yeah.
But didn't have savings, didn't have a house. The job I was in, I was living out of hotels. And then Dan and Spud, my Tenerife boys and mates, they had a house in Stevenage.
Right.
Spare room. Went to live with them during this 6 months, and then that kind of fell apart. And then I went to live with one of my best mates, Kevin Nick.
Yep.
In their spare room, hardly any money a month, didn't have a job, and it was Christmas. I remember it being December. I was just going out getting pissed.
Yeah.
And I actually spoke to Kevin Nick about this very recently on New Year's Eve. And I remember Nick coming in and she went like, you need to stop and you need to go and get a job. And again, that bit of luck, I went online, seen a job. It wasn't advertised of who the company was. It was in sales, in transport. I thought, oh, that looks all right. In the back of my mind, I wanted to try and get into UPS or FedEx. Yeah. Take a bit of a backward step to get in. And I applied for this job, and it was just really lucky. It was UPS. And they were at the final interview stage. Again, I won't go into too much here. I got that job very quickly. You did? And I got into UPS. And that was 2011. It was around 2011. Went fast away, went pop. Yeah. 2010 to 11. So 2011. January it was, UPS. So how long was you there for? So I was there, so I did about, again, that was a big regret. I was there about 18 months, and again, a customer poached me. Right. Again, offered more money, thought it was great, and that didn't work out. Completely different industry. They let me go after 6 months. That was hard. I bet. That was really hard because I was doing well at UPS. Yeah. And then again, luckily enough, my old boss, again, someone who was big inspiration to me, said like, if it doesn't work, call. Yeah. And the thing at UPS then, it was they don't take people back. You're privileged to work at UPS, but they took me back. And then that's when I started to progress through UPS, the ranks of UPS. Oh, really? And it was about 7 or 8 years in total. Oh, wow. So you really, really learnt the ropes. Yeah, so I kind of just climbed the ladder, sales, and then I became a temporary sales manager, and then I became sales manager in central London, which was like a big thing. It was like it was known as the hardest territory in Europe. Yeah, they're massive, aren't they? They're massive. And I just climbed the ladder at UPS, and then I got to my last position, which is proper square peg round hole boardroom. There was me with Yanks and Mexicans. Yeah. I felt so out of place, but it was I was on that path. But you learned. I learned a lot, and that's when I had the most difficult part of my life, I would say, in work, where it was officially diagnosed as exhaustion and anxiety. Anxiety, yeah. I didn't think I had it. No. I just couldn't sleep. Right. And I remember my wife at the time, I was flying here, there and everywhere in that role, and I remember coming back, I knew I was bad, and I was in Germany, and I told my boss at the time, I was like, I'm not great. You need to get me out of this role. But the role I was in was like, it was renowned at UPS for a springboard to be a country manager. Right. So Belgium or this. So it was where I wanted to go, but it was rough. It was like, you're dealing with all the vice presidents. You were the bitch. You were the bitch. Really? That knew what was going on. Right. They, don't get me wrong, they did kind of know, but they were VPs, right? Yeah, yeah. So you had to kind of educate them a little bit about what actually is going on. Okay. In UPS in that country, so to say. But it was renowned as one of the toughest roles. I was told when I took the job, but they said if you can ride through the next 2 years, your next job is the job. Yeah, country manager, relocation package. Yeah. Go and work wherever you want in the world at UPS. Nice. And I was in Germany and I was trying to engineer a move. And I remember walking through the door My Sarah will tell me better, but I was just not in a good way.
No.
And she'd been pushing me, saying, look, this is not, you're not right, but you don't see it.
No, you don't see
You don't see it. And I was so fixated on doing well. Sarah was pregnant with Freddie,
channel vision.
6 months pregnant.
Yeah.
We'd just moved into our nice house. You know, I had the salary, I had the shares, I had the car, I had the Range Rover, got the Range Rover, I was at UPS. But I wasn't right. No. And so I went to the doctors and they said what it was. UPS, they were great, to be fair, from a HR point. They'd seen I'd cracked. Yeah. And they said, right, take 2 weeks off, but we're going to assess it. Yeah. And in the end, I had quite a bit of time off, and they paid for me to go and talk to someone, which I did not want to do. No, that's hard, isn't it? Bloke thing talking, but my employer insisted. Yes, that had
Did it help?
I think it must have done something that, you know, it must have done something. The first two, I was like just there. And when I remember sitting down in a chair like this and in a house, she was like an old lady with a cat, and it was all a bit fucking quirky and all a bit, I was so uncomfortable. And I just said, look, I'll be straight with you. I'm here because my employers told me to come. And she was great. We just talked, and she probably did help, actually, because when at the time, even though I was not, you say about getting the itch and ideas, within 2 weeks of me being off, I'd already applied to try and get a franchise at McDonald's.
Yeah, crazy. See,
because my mind just cleared. It cleared.
It's clarity.
It just cleared. I was sleeping, I was doing this, so I applied, and I remember talking to her about that and what I wanted to do. And it was maybe the third or fourth session. She went, Ben, you know what you need to do now. And I went, do I? And she went, yeah, you need to leave UPS. You need to leave. You've applied for McDonald's franchise, you're this, you're that, you want to do this. You know what you need to do. Go and do it. And I'd had some loose discussions with Dave and Steve, my ex-partners at HBC. So I kind of had that bubbling. HBC was bubbling. I had the McDonald's franchise bubbling, which I actually got to the final stages of. Did you? You didn't. I don't think you know that.
No.
A couple of people know, I think.
Do you know, I've looked at franchises, and I looked at McDonald's, and you have to really jump through some...
in the final interview with McDonald's, they say this is the equivalent of winning the lottery, of getting the McDonald's franchise. Really? Got to the final stage. So the stages where you go to meetings. I went to work in a McDonald's in Birmingham for 4 days, doing the fries, doing that, you do all that, all the way through. So from the January till we started HBC, which is the July 31st, I was off UPS for 6 months. So that was me trying to find my way. I was still getting paid, but I knew at the back of my mind, I think I'm going. And I got really far with UPS, and then the HBC thing. And that's when we started HBC. Dave knows this, so if Dave watches it, he might be surprised.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we started HBC again on the back of a fag packet. We went to the bank. You know, Dave and Steve had a decent transport company that they'd sold, and they did their 3 years and wanted to start again. Okay. They're a lot older than me, Dave and Steve. There's about a 20-year gap.
Okay.
So they'd been there, done it, sold, got a few quid, but wanted to go again. But they, as they said at the time, they wanted a bit of young blood, so to say. There was a connection with me and Dave through my wife, the old wife's cousin married story, right? So I used to socialise with Dave's daughter outside of work. But I knew Dave through football. Right. And it was Sarah that actually said, not my wife Sarah, Dave's daughter Sarah said, like, my dad wants to talk to you, he wants to start a courier company. And I've been telling him what you did at UPS, and he really wants to talk to you. So the three of us got together in my house. I was like, fucking hell, this is mad. Like, you just want to start and whatever else. So we talked about it. Nothing written down. Nothing documented, nothing written down. We had a handshake on what we agreed as in shares. Which basically for me was Dave and Steve had put the money in. The risk for me was leaving UPS on a six-figure salary. And I said, well, I still need to be paid, but I will grow it, and then you give me the shares. That's, in essence, that's what we agreed. Nothing documented. And
crazy.
That's how HBC started, but McDonald's was still running.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. And you got to the last...
Got to the last bit. It was a few months later, and they did some checks and they said, we can see you've been appointed as a director for HBC Logistics. You told us you were at UPS. And I said, well, I haven't seen you for 2 or 3 months. You know, it was just paperwork and online stuff. And I said, look, I've started HBC, but McDonald's, I want the franchise. I want it. But, you know, it was about a 10-month process. You know, everything was lined up, went for this final interview, and they said, I don't think we can do it now because you've started this logistics company. And I said, look, it's only 3 months. You know, if you give me the franchise, I will stop and I'll take the franchise 100%. You know, I was like, I want it. I want it. And they said, we need a week. We need to get the board together to decide because we were, you know, we're not going to lie, we were pretty set on giving you a franchise. Anyway, I was in Portugal on holiday at the time. I remember they called and said, sorry.
Really?
Yeah, because you've changed.
Really?
Yeah, because you've left UPS and didn't tell us. I said, well, again, I was like, but no one spoke to me. What do you want me to do? Just put my life on hold?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
they declined me taking the franchise.
Oh my God. And did you have a location?
Which ironically is in Biggleswade where my business is now. And when that franchise launched, it was the most successful franchise. That was the one they were lining me up for.
I've always looked at them and they look complicated. They do, and like you hear a lot. They ask for a lot up front, don't they?
Huge amount.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a pot to piss in.
No, I was about to say.
Well, I had my own house, a bit of equity in the house that I could have done something with, but because it's a franchise, McDonald's introduce you to HSBC, and because it is in their mind printing money,
they got no problem.
100% loan, no equity, they'd back you because you were getting the franchise.
Do you remember what the loan was?
Oh, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was I can't remember the amounts, it was a lot.
Yeah, so the bank will back you because it's
the thing is, as you know, McDonald's, they buy the premises, they build the premises, they own the premises. That's where they make most of the money, as you know. So you don't, they rent it back, and the capital that the bank would give you was just startup.
That's mad.
And there was like an agreed rate, because there's a model.
Yeah,
there's a very strict model.
The
bank knew the model.
Even to get your foot in the door with them, it's unheard of, you know, like in this
it was unheard of, but they actually said when they rejected me, they said you can't reapply for 2 years, but we'll make an exception. If you come back in 12 months, we'll talk to you.
I never thought about it.
No, because then HBC
taking off.
So I failed that, and then HBC carried on, and then HBC really started to grow, and I just didn't.
So HBC, 2017.
31st July 2017 we started.
You've got these two guys that are obviously your business partners.
Yep.
They've come in, funded it. I mean, like, don't need to know how much, but it wouldn't be cheap because.
Well, no, they were. Steve in particular was very shrewd with how he did things with the bank. Yeah. So remember, we went for a meeting in Luton to meet it was RBS. And I remember him calling me up and he's saying, oh, they're asking for a fucking business plan, Ben. Can you do one? I said, I ain't got a fucking clue. I said, you run a business, Steve? He said, I don't know how to fucking do one.
Yeah.
He went, don't worry about it. They know who we are from our previous company. Okay. It was a relationship, right? I'm sure it'll be fine. And we sat in this office with RBS, and then the bank manager was all prim and proper. And he said, right, have you got your business plan, Steve? And Steve went to his pocket and pulled out a bit of paper.
There it goes.
And he went, right, so first year, Ben thinks we can get up to 1 million.
Yeah.
And then we're going to start with 4 vans, and Dave's got all his owner drivers, and, you know, I'm going to run the finance. I'll get my daughter in to help. And it was just scribbled on a bit of paper. And I never forget the two people, they just looked at each other and looked back. If they'd have said no, it would have been I don't know if it would have been a non-starter, but
it would have been harder.
Fun. Yeah, it would have been harder. All invoice finance.
Yeah,
people know what that is, right? So that's how it was funded, and they had to put some equity in, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But the 4 vans we bought was just minimal deposit on finance. The unit was 5,000 square foot. There was quite a big deposit. Again, Dave and Steve funded that deposit for the warehouse, and again, Steve was not keen on taking this warehouse. It was quite new. It was expensive at the time, 3 or 4 grand a month, I think. And I said, look, it was like, we hold 7,000 pallets now. You could get 200 in there. Yeah. And I said, don't worry, Steve, I can fill it. You know, we'll get it in and we'll get some pallets filled. I'll fill it. And Steve was very, very unsure, but he backed it.
He did.
Yeah, he backed
Okay.
it and put the deposit in. And we basically used the bank's money.
Yeah.
Because they'd had the company before, there was a bit of a leg up, and I'm sure loads of people know about selling your company and then starting again. Doesn't mean.
Give me 2 seconds of your time. Just want to say again a massive thank you. Please listen to this message. It's really important to me. And I know it affects so many people. Thank you. My experience with ADHD is real. It's affecting thousands of children across the UK every day. But too often our schools overlook the signs, labelling kids destructive, lazy or unmotivated. The truth, these students aren't failing. The system's failing them. We need to be vigilant. Teachers, parents and leaders must recognise the signs, offer support and fight for every child's right to learn in a way that works for them. Because when the schools ignore ADHD, we're not just letting the kids down, we're holding them back. Let's do better.
Yeah, funding. So yeah, because you've got vehicles as well. I wrote that down. Like purchasing vehicles. I mean, that's a big outlay, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very big outlay. Yeah. So we started with 4, and the traditionally what we do in the same day, well, it's a big owner-driver model. So guy, bloke, lady with a van, we give them work, we pay them X, we charge Y. But we started with 4, and then as we started to grow, we started to hire a lot of vans week to week, put drivers in them, and then kind of got to about 12 months. Then we got a bit more established with the bank, getting a bit more money in. And then, a lot of people started approaching us and said, look, you can buy these. And when you work out what we were paying for hiring the van, it was give or take a similar cost to buy. So because we had that regular work and we were growing, we were right, okay, well, we'll de-hire those 4 and we'll buy 4 of our own. And we did that. And we became 8 vans. Okay. And then that's how we did it. We hired, got to a point and thought, right, have we got enough to give those now 12 vans with? Yes, boom. And that's kind of how we did it.
Right. And what's a van cost?
Good question. They've gone up a lot recently.
Yeah.
We've got quite a lot of Luton vans with tail lifts. We've got a lot of Luton vans with tail lifts. They're touching 50 grand now.
Are they?
Yeah.
And how many you got, sorry?
48, something like that.
That's an asset, isn't it? So
yeah, mix of Lutons and long wheelbases. Yeah. And the heavy goods vehicles, I've kept that subcontracted, so they're all HBC logoed up.
Oh, nice.
But there's one guy that's grew with us, his business within a business, so you
just kept with him?
I subcontract all the work. He has an office in my office.
Brilliant.
And we give him all the 7.5 ton and above work, but it's all HBC on the side.
That's amazing.
But yeah, again, he charges me X and we charge Y.
But he loves you.
I think
yeah, well,
screw him a bit on price sometimes. But he's a great guy. He's a great guy, Daniel. He's another classic story. He's a Romanian fella, super intelligent pilot by trade, commercial pilot, and he just bought a Luton van, started working for us, then bought another one, brought his twin brother in, and then he just grew and he got 4 or 5 vans within us. And then one day he said, I'm thinking of getting a lorry. What do you think? And I said, well, we do quite a bit of lorry work, so go and buy one. So we went and bought one. Brilliant. And he drove it, and then he's grew with us as well. So
that's amazing.
His business is about £1.6 million a year within our business.
Wow.
Just from subcontracting, yeah.
That's it's nice to take people on your journey as well and be loyal. Yeah. I think that does get lost in business in general. I think loyalty and again over a pound note, people can be difficult and not take people on the journey as well. Yeah. I think that's something that I've experienced, and you would be surprised what people will do for a pound note, and would rather cross the street and not talk about it and keep their head down. So yeah, to take someone on that journey, you've grown quite quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah,
in 8 years.
It's
started and sold.
It's a big growth,
There was a lot of headaches there along the way. Free premises, well, technically free homes, but we had quite a few premises, farm barns and things like that as we were growing, ducking and diving, trying to make things work. But Yeah, so we grew. First year we did just over 1 million. Then
Yeah.
we did second year 3.2. Third year 4.4. Fourth year COVID, we dropped to 4.1 because most of transport boomed when COVID come.
Right.
But we didn't because we were quite specialist, same day type, and that work didn't boom, and that was fucking scary.
Yeah, I bet.
For us, we
I remember it.
3 years in, 2.5 years in, really, working from home, seeing the revenue dropping, remember sat in my house, talking to Dave and Steve, and we were like, we're just gonna have to fucking let everyone go. We're gonna have to survive. And then Sunak was PM, and he brought in the furlough scheme. So literally we drafted everything to let everyone go.
Really?
Let everyone go.
And how many
apart from
everyone?
a few. And then we put everyone on furlough, which got us through that. And then it kind of got to the June time where it was still, in transport, we could have stayed in the office.
Right.
But again, Dave and Steve were a bit older. They were, as we were all blinded by fucking COVID back then, it was like, well, you could die. Well, you can die. People did die, right? But
they built it up to believe that we were all
the world was going to end. And Dave and Steve and the staff were a bit nervous about it. So we kind of rode that a bit. And then I remember at kind of end of May time, I was like to Dave and Steve, look, we've got to get back in the office. Yeah. We've got to get back, and we've got to start doing what we're doing. So which we did. But we were still doing the same things. We were still getting the right, new customers every week. We were still growing, but not money-wise. I think that year we had a record amount of customers, but we went from 4.4 to 4.1, then we went to 9.7.
That's
because when COVID stopped,
I bet,
and because we were doing all the right things and getting customers on, that customer was only sending one job, but normally sends 10.
That's crazy.
As soon as the doors opened, we went, and we flew.
Some growth. That's
flew.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's when it was what I would call a good headache.
I better say it's like a cash cow, right? Then
it was a little bit.
But such a big growth as it's what 4+ million.
It was not easy.
No.
It was not easy on the staff. The staff, which we've still got most of them at that time. They work long hours as it was, but even then we were working silly hours, and they were staying late, and we weren't paying them late, and we were just trying to look after them when we could.
People don't see that.
No,
you just see the growth.
Just see the growth.
To
see the growth.
To grow so quickly, your overheads become bigger.
They did a bit,
yeah.
And
the payment situations, obviously, you 30 days or
it's a mix. No, it was typically 30 days.
Yeah.
But we had some big customers that were on 60 days.
Yeah.
We had one of our biggest customers go into administration about 6 months in.
Oh, that happens, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, it happens. Okay. Yeah. You don't because I'm in the construction world, and you see that a lot.
Yeah.
The construction world is we call it the Wild West because I always talk about this. I find it fascinating with everyone and business in general is that you go in Tesco's and you buy your food and you pay for it. Well,
that's the biggest thing I've learned over the years is, without sounding arrogant, I think the selling thing comes naturally. It's quite easy. It's not easy to sell. Don't get me wrong, but if I'm good at something, I'll probably say it's a bit of that. But getting the fucking money in, that was the bit I didn't really realise. No. I'm saying to my partners, look, we've got this $5,000 a month, $2,000 a week, and then 3 months later, Steve's going, this fucking twat hasn't paid. So the numbers look good on paper, but the money was.
But you got nothing in the bank.
Not coming. So that was the pinch point with the growth as well.
Yeah,
was the cash flow and learning that. Cash flow was just a word to me. It wasn't even a word back then.
And I'll make you right. I speak to a lot of people in business, and the ones that fail are obviously cash. It's it's getting the money in quick enough. They go, but we're so busy, and you're going, yeah, I know that's great, but you're taking your eye off. And I was exposed to that myself. The bigger we got, and in my world, it wasn't service and maintenance. It was install. So it was basically businesses that could fail. you've got the big business, you see it all the time in the news that these big companies are going under, because their overheads and their margins are so small. And going on that is like the margins that you work with. Cash is king, it's all right to say, well, I know a lot of businesses that we do work for, we did do work for, who was working on 5% margins.
Yeah, see, our margins were always pretty good, but that goes back to that Fastway story of undercutting and filling the trunk.
Yeah.
When we got to that growth, it was like, well, I learned from that. We can't do that. Can't do that in this situation. So
it's a race to the bottom, otherwise, isn't it?
Race to the bottom.
And I hear that a lot.
We're going through it now.
Yeah.
In transport.
Is it?
And we're now kind of got to that point where we're kind of one of the best, the biggest in that kind of big area that we cover. There's the other Ben Weldons now, and Daves and Steves that are coming through, the smaller ones, 5 vans, chipping away at the heels, all chipping away at the heels. And so
nicking business,
and that's so. Like I said earlier, I'm very against that now. One thing, again, if there's any advice, is try and stay really strong on what you're good at. We have customers, and some of my salespeople get a bit frustrated. My partner, Dave, he runs our operation. He's like, but Ben, they're fucking attacking our customers and whatever else. I'm like, well, look, we're better than them. If they're going to go for a penny, let them go, and we'll keep tabs. We'll do the right thing. We'll keep saying we're here and your account's still open, and and when they mess up, we always do it professionally. Right? When they mess up, we're here. And we went through a cycle of that last year with a few other people that were nibbling at the heels, and that work has come back.
Has it?
Not all of it, but look, we're taking 5, 8, 10 customers a week off some. So you're always going to, when you get to that size, you're always going to lose some, but you don't want to. I don't want to lose anyone. Yeah.
If you're
as
good,
long as you're doing the right things, that's what you've got to focus on. Keep doing the right thing. As you get bigger and whatever else, things change.
You've got yourself into a position recruiting people, What would you say is a must for you? What do you look at because I hate interviewing. I mean, it's weird because we're doing a podcast, but I do hate interviewing people. I wish I was better at it.
Yeah.
I thought I was really good at it. And then I'm probably a little bit too easy.
Yeah.
So what do you?
Probably the same.
Yeah. What do you look for?
Got to be the right fit.
Yeah.
The right fit. So personality is a big one.
Yeah.
Most of the roles at HBC, they've got to be the right fit for the company, because we're maybe not prim and proper on everything.
Basically,
Said the office is very relaxed, the language is very choice.
Yeah.
You've got to be the right fit. So that's a big one. And again, it's the big things. I only have a couple of questions in an interview. Is you kind of just have to demonstrate that you've worked hard. I don't rule out people that have job hopped.
No,
a lot of people do, but I try and understand why they've job hopped and
got a long list of jobs that they've been through.
Personality is the big one, and the only real solid question I ask is, why should I hire you? That's the key one. And if they answer that fairly well, but I've hired so many people, even at UPS, but mainly HBC, as you don't really know until you get them on. You could have the best CV in the world. I've hired people on paper, they're going to change this business.
Oh no!
And 3 months later, they're gone. Because
I find that fascinating, Ben.
So you've got to take a bit of a punt, really.
Yeah, you do. I find it fascinating. Do you go back to their old employees and get any references now? No, and do you know what? I never did either, and that's why I was asking. I find it fascinating that these people that come and sit in our offices, and sit there and say, "I want to work for you," and they give us this speech on how, and why, and and whatever, and they're there, they obviously want to be part of the business because they're there for the and then 3 months later you're getting rid of them because they haven't fulfilled what they said they were going to do. Now, I'm not saying it's an all one way, because sometimes I probably have let the people that I've employed down by not being able to give them as much focus as I probably needed to because I'm being stretched. But I do tend to find that it is out there at the moment, or well, since I've had business, is that people come and sit in front of you and go, yeah, I really want to work for you, you know, and I'm going to give you this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do that. And then 3 months later, like you said, you're going, I've got to get rid of them, you know. I find that really fascinating. I'd probably say I've seen it more than not.
Yeah.
Like I've been in business for nearly 20 years. I'd say I was counting them on my hand the other day of how many people that I would, if I go into business tomorrow, how many would I take with me?
Yeah.
Now, is that my fault because I've chose bad, or is that just the way it is? You know, it's a numbers game as such. I don't know. Do you see the same, or is it? I mean, you have obviously good staff work for you.
Yeah, we do. We have,
but you also,
but we've had bad ones as well, and I've hired them. You know, it's a bit like what you said earlier, the people thing. I think I think I'm a good people reader. I kind of know a good person when I meet one, and that's it really. There's no. I've only very recently gone to a 2-stage interview process, free technically, where it was just literally interview someone. If we like them, we'll hire them. Whereas more recently, we're on a bit of a recruitment drive at the minute, and I've kind of said, look, do the teams, find them out. Do you get the warm fuzzy feeling? If they're good, then you interview them. And then see what they're like. And then you're bringing them to me if you think they're good.
Yeah, we did the same.
Yeah. So, look, there's no rhyme or reason. No, CV is a CV. We've had lots of people, some of our best people that have had zero transport experience. It's like, you know, it's a bit like, have they grafted? When did they have their first job? 16. They were working in JD on a weekend on a 0-hour contract or McDonald's. I like that. They were working when they were young. And they were in college as well.
That's good. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Work ethic's definitely key, isn't it? Yeah. But yeah, like for me, employing people is massive, you know, like, and I think that obviously helps you obviously be a better business for a start. You know, it's massive that you know, I think employing better people helps.
As you said to me about what we want to talk about, if you can try and give people that watch or listen to this some advice is you'll get to a point where, you know, I want to do everything. I'm still a bit controlling like that a little bit now, and I'm finding that now with the new owners that have bought me. I'm like, go away, I can deal with this, right? So you'll build to a point where you control, but the hardest thing is when you get to the people bit that you have to recognise, I need help.
That's
and
hard.
You need to get the right people in to support you and make you look good. And I've got a few examples where that's been good and bad. One in particular, there was a guy that grew with us. He's one of the guys now nibbling at my heels, and that relationship ended not great, and that's probably one of my biggest regrets is I hired this all singing, all dancing CEO who had a great background. He's very successful. But I had this guy here that was coming up through the ranks, more than up through the ranks, and that hire was the wrong hire. It put his nose out of joint. That one was not the right hire at the time. He's now left, and he's now started his own company, and he's nibbling away at the heels, you know. So, yeah, people is the big one. And then when we bought one of our partners out about a year ago, wanted to retire, Steve. He kind of looked after the financials, and he'd probably admit himself that we'd got to a point of that we probably needed a bit of help. So I hired an FD consultant.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And he's numbers is look, I'm okay at numbers in general, but in terms of the nitty gritty of accounts, he's been exceptional.
Amazing.
Exceptional. So again,
and that takes you on to the next, doesn't it? It helps you take to the next step, and that's what it's saying about employing people that
you need someone, because like you're saying about the ideas, like my partners over the years, you know, I said, oh look, I want to build the software to run the company, right? You're fucking mad. Like, what are you on about? No, trust me, like, but they always had the reins on me a bit, and you do need people around you sometimes just to go. I was speaking to a guy at the event last week, and he's a proper Londoner, proper business kind of transport, rough and ready type. And he even admitted last year, he said the biggest risk to his business was himself, because if he didn't start to tighten things up what he was doing, and he'd go one day, well, yeah, let's fucking do that. You could just destroy it. So you've got to kind of recognise that you need to get good people around you.
Oh, 100%. I think
you need a good wife.
You do need a good wife.
You do need a good wife. And I've got a good wife.
Yeah, I think we're both fortunate with that. You know, you're blessed with yours, and I'm definitely with mine.
Understanding.
Yeah. Well, it's sacrifices, right? You know, you have to sacrifice something. You can't have your cake and eat it. You know, I don't believe in that. I don't think, like, I've missed many of plays, many of, you know, school parents' evenings, and you know, just recently, because I'm actually going to my daughter's, you know, teachers, you know, whatever they call them, but I'm there, I'm present, and I can see what it means to her, but I never was, you know, I never was to my eldest, and, you know, there's sacrifices, right?
There is, there is, but it's hard, you can't. It's
you're building a better life for them.
Yeah,
as well, and I believe that, you know, there is a selfish part of it as well. I mean, you know, we all have that in us, but I was building a better business. I was building a business for my children to be, hopefully, have a better life than I did, you know, and that was my gain. But sacrifices are a given. You know, you can't do one without the other, right?
No.
And what
she's been great with me over the years with it, and
it's good though. You need that, mate, and you need that. It's that calm as well. Sometimes when you're obviously going through, you know, with the mental health, and you know, being anxious and that stuff. You need some, you know, people around you. I mean, as you get older. I was explaining this to my wife the other day. You have more fear. Like as I've grown older, I was never scared of anything. And then suddenly, and she was just, you know, she's my calm. You know, and I don't know if you can relate to that, but
Sarah's not. Sorry, Sarah, but Sarah's probably not my calm.
Is she not?
She knows kind of when to keep in check, and it is with the family bit, because you need you just kind of run away. And there was a couple of years ago where it was getting to the point of that. I was just bypassing, you know, Freddie was a few years old. Obviously, Lily came into our life. We fostered Lily, so that was amazing. That was a big change into our life. And a few years back, you know, she said, "Look, you're gonna have to do a bit better. You're gonna have to,
That's fair enough.
And it is, and it helps. Sometimes you need those hard conversations because you just don't see it. And naturally, like you said, my response was, "Well, I'm doing this for us.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry I can't be there because I'm trying to make things better, so we can do this and we can do that." But like what she said, "I don't fucking care.
No, I need you to do this.
I need you to do this." Yeah, with that, you know.
And when they're saying it, it means it, right? And you know when they mean it.
Yeah. So I have made that change. I think she would agree with that. You know, I do finish earlier at times now. I'm a bit more flexible, and you know, I take Freddie to his football and I pick him up from this and whatever else. Right. It's the balance. Yeah. It's hard. It's probably the hardest.
Yeah.
You know, the business thing, you know, you'll take a view on it if you do well or whatever else you do well. Balancing your family life is probably the hardest.
I think I think from my experience, I got it wrong, you know. Trying to reflecting, you know, if you reflect on anything, I definitely got that wrong. You know, I was so, my phones, I had 2 phones, a bit similar to yourself. They were a bomb, you know.
You're on holiday as well.
On holidays, there was no such thing, and people go, "Oh yeah, but you're going on these nice holidays," but I'm stressed because I know what's going on back in England. And then there's the other side where you don't really sleep as well as you should, and your eating becomes irregular, and everything about it. People go, "Oh yeah, you know, you're smashing it. You're driving around in nice cars and got big house."
That's what people don't see.
But they don't see the other side of it, and you can see, like any business or entrepreneur or people that got businesses. You talk to them; they're in the same boat.
They're all similar, yeah.
Anyone wants to succeed. It's that drive to get there, and you know, my advice to any young person that's ever listening to this is that you have to work really hard.
Yeah.
You know, there's no gain without work. You know, very simple. It's you need a bit of luck on the way, and then you need to employ people that are good. You get them right, you know, you pretty much got a successful business. What are you listening to at the moment? Like, you know, do you listen to audiobooks, podcasts?
I started to the past probably year.
Yeah.
Started to listen to a few.
Yeah.
It's Stephen Bartlett is
Yeah,
probably the one.
good, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very good. Yeah. I listen to him quite a bit. I've gotten into YouTube a little bit more now.
Yeah.
Some of the more kind of educational stuff, not just business, just general stuff. Because I can't sleep without watching a telly. I tried
Do
the
you fall
audio.
asleep with it on?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So when we moved house, Sarah said we're not putting the telly up, so now it's phone at the side of me with a headphone. I tried the audio book, but even though I'm listening to something, it's just like, no.
Yeah.
So
And where's that come from?
I think that's just maybe my childhood. Like when, you know, I had a first telly in the room. It's like we had a small house, you know, we didn't have multiple rooms or this, you know, your Sega and your PlayStation was in your room with the telly. That was the dream, right? So I think it's just come from that. But I literally can't, you know, I can't, you know. I woke up last night and as soon as I do, I roll over, grab my headphone.
Yeah.
If it's falling out, stick it in. Put something on.
Gone.
Yeah.
I was like that with a loss. Like when I lost my mum, I had to have sound in the room.
Yeah.
It was like I was on my own otherwise. It was a real strange. When my wife met me, you know, I used to have the radio on or the TV on.
Yeah.
And then that just suddenly went away. And obviously having someone next to you is a bit of a different scenario. So I think that was, for me, it was just a bit of a calm. But so you still do it?
Yeah, so I listened, a bit of Steve. I like watching Dragon's Den, the classic.
Yeah.
I've listened to a bit of audio books and stuff. Probably the only decent book I would recommend is one of my old bosses at UPS is called The Chimp Paradox, if you've heard of that.
I've heard of this, yeah.
So I think it's Steve Peters who is does a lot of things with Chris Hoy and Ronnie O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good one.
Is it?
Yeah, I didn't read it, I audioed it because I just don't like reading
Paradox.
books. It's called The Chimp Paradox and it's all about your mind about how we're chimps and when you go fucking mad and you go off on one and you put the chimp back in the butt. It sounds mad, but it's like for just normal blokes like me and you.
Yeah.
You think, fucking I read that? That would be the one I'd recommend because you can relate to it, not just business, it's life as well. You know, when the kids are doing your head in or your missus is doing your head in and things like that.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation, The Chimp Paradox.
Because someone recommended that to me ages and ages ago, and I just never jumped on it, but I'm going to jump on it. I'll to finish it up, there's two things probably. Who would you like to thank? I mean, you know, out of your journey, where you are now. I mean, we mentioned a couple of people on it at the beginning. Yeah,
I think it's pretty much the people I've mentioned.
Who would you like to thank?
Yeah, so it was the guy I mentioned earlier, Peter, who who passed away pretty suddenly after that illness. He was the one that kind of got the Range Rover, and I think he, talking to you today, he's probably really contributed on that path. The first Dave and Steve in the Fastway days, I think just giving me that shot of becoming a director and an owner. I would then say after that there was a few people at UPS, but one in particular, Tracy Barker. Yeah, she was my manager, and she really pushed me to progress through. UPS is a huge company, right? You know, I was what I was known as a traditional kind of BDM account exec. Yeah, she got a kind of a promotion to look after another part of the sales team, and she really pushed me to look after her team while she was on the 6 month. Okay. And it was kind of unheard of. You know, at UPS it was so structured. It was like you're an AE, you're then a national, then you go into enterprise, then you go into sales. It's like bum. You don't deviate from that path. But I went from salesperson to temporary look after Tracy's team. And then I must have done something pretty right. And then that's where the promotion come to straight to sales manager. So I went from salesperson to sales manager. And I remember at the time, a lot of people were, how the fuck have you done that? It was like unheard of, and that was all down to Tracy. Okay. She was great. She was really, really good with me.
Have you stayed in contact, or is it?
Yes, not as much as I'd like. We'll send this to Tracy so she can.
I was about to say,
so she can listen to it.
Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, she was great. And then Dave and Steve, my partners, you know, we've had some rocky roads, the three of us, right? And Ketsi more so. But, you know, they believed in me. They stuck to their word when we shook hands in my kitchen about how the deal was going to be. You know, Dave is still working with me now, you know, so we're in different roles, but he's still my partner, always will be my partner. Yeah, I'd like to thank him. Dan and Spud, Baz, my mates, they were always there at the end of the phone. Certainly more recently when the sale was going through with HBC, they were there, you know, Kev, Beats.
And they were all there before as well.
They were all there before. They know the Ben.
Again,
and they know the Ben.
We know we're running out of time, but it's something that friendship that's friendship. That's real friendship, you know, and that's what you look for. And and the easy one, but it's not just a given, but like Sarah, like she's lived and breathed it, and like, you know, we've been married nearly 15 years now. And it's not been all plain sailing, you know. Never is. Our families are you know, you don't even know the ins and outs of some of it, right? You know about the Lily thing. She's my blood, my niece, my sister, that I won't go into it, but obviously it was a problem. She took Lily in with open arms. While I was growing HBC, she had a 6-year-old land on her lap that was not in the best way. She did that. She's always supported me, even when I didn't think she was supporting me. It's mad, you know, talking to you now again. I don't talk this stuff, but you know, even when I know she, you know, I think, wow, she's fucking giving me a hard time for again. Like, you know, you need to come to Freddie's fucking assembly. You need to come to that. But like, I've got this and that. This. No, Ben, you're not fucking going. You've got to come. You've got to come to this, and you need that. We are a bit chalk and cheese. We always joke about it, but you know, we work. Mate. We are yin and yang, and we've had lots of ups. We've had lots of downs. But you know, she's a good one, and she does rub it in my face sometimes. You know, there's a saying, and she always says it to me. Sorry, sir, I can't remember it. It's something about having a good wife and happy life, or something along that. Something along those lines. Oh, I do believe it's right. Behind every successful man. That's what she says. That's it. Behind every successful man, there's a successful woman. I do tend to agree. Fuck me, does she remind me of that? I bet she does. She does remind me of that. Fair play, Sarah. Yeah, she does remind me of that. And so the biggest one would be to her, and it's not for brownie points. I wouldn't have got to where I was without her, because when we met, I was in Kevin Nick's spare bedroom in my overdraft. Crazy. You know? Crazy. And, you know, even now with all the family stuff, she is not, you know, I said, you know, we're changing her car this week. She's like, change your car for? We've just sold our business, right? And we've not treated ourselves with anything. And I said, well, look, it's nothing too extravagant, the car we're getting. But it's a Defender, and she was like, you know, do we need to do it, Ben? Like, you know, I'm quite happy with the car and whatever else. Exactly the same. Yeah. My wife is exactly the same. Yeah. But you need that. Yeah. You need that. It's that grounding as well. Well, it is. Well, when you sell, and like what we've done, we, you know, for the listeners, we sold HBC on the 20th of December. So I'm on that next journey now for the next couple of years with the new owners. You know, which is exciting. It is exciting, yeah. And well done. I'd just like to say that, well done. Nice one. That's amazing. And you know, I said to you off air, and I said, you know, you deserve everything. You should. You know, you're a top guy, and you've worked really hard. I think the story that we've told today just shows you how hard you've worked. Yeah, nice one. Fair play, mate. No. Listen, I mean that. So, yeah, pretty exciting stuff. So, what's next? So, what's next, really? So, the way the deal's structured now is there is. I'm kind of shackled in for 2 years, which is what I wanted, to be honest. You touched on it earlier about not working. I couldn't not work. So yeah, there's a big plan now to kind of grow HBC at a new level within DX and kind of integrate all the DX work. Kind of hopefully educate
you know, they're very successful in lots of areas of logistics, but they're not in my industry the same day well. So it's to grow that. There is an incentive there. I'm now a shareholder at DX as well. They're private equity owned, so there's an incentive to stay. But it's probably more now. The next big thing for me is with the sale is making sure that I actually do feel pressure with that. Everyone says about pressure growing the business.
Yeah.
Always at the back of the mind. Look, you know, Beardo, you know, you bought the watch, you bought the cars, and you go, fucking hell, I've lost all that money on that watch, or I've lost that, done the chippy. Yeah. But I always knew at the back of my mind I had HBC. I've not got HBC anymore. I've sold it, so I've got this pot that I need to now make sure that I use it well. So if I stay with DX for many years, or if I don't, I'm set up. So I've just done my first purchase. I've done an apartment in Liverpool last week. Liverpool next to it. You know, obviously, you know, I'm a big Evertonian, but Liverpool is going through that regeneration around the ground, and there was an opportunity there. So
that's amazing.
There's a few other things. I think I'll probably stay in property. I've done that before. It's pretty safe. Yeah, pretty safe. Yeah, pretty safe. But there is another tech business I'm looking at as well, which we've started with some guys who I've met on this journey of HBC. Yeah. That's called Mint app. That's in the detailing world. So hopefully the next 3 to 4 months that'll launch.
Brilliant.
But I think really is just see where it takes us. See where it takes me next. And
the app's called?
The app is called Mint.
Mint.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's 3 different parts to it. There's like a perks element. Yeah. Where it's like a subscription. You pay a membership and you get all your equipment that you need at a really good price.
Equipment for what? Sorry.
For detailing cars.
Oh, nice.
Detailing cars. Yeah. And then you've got the second element, which will be to then distribute work to detailers. Yeah. So the detailers will become accredited with Mint. Yeah. And then the app will then distribute work to plug gaps to their day-to-day.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then the third part of the tech will be helping that detailer run what they do, right? So they've got their own 40, 50 customers, and we'll give them a couple of jobs here and there, and then the tech will tell them that they need to be there and there and there and there.
Pretty clever stuff.
It sounds it, yeah. And
it does.
Yeah, so there's 3 good guys I'm involved with that, and again, just going quickly into that about starting businesses, I'm a massive believer in partnerships. Partnerships. So there's 3 really good guys that are involved in that as well.
Partnerships are a key. I was listening to someone yesterday and he said, I can't do partnerships because it's, and then I'm the other way. I always need to even if the person doesn't agree.
I know my place. I kind of know what I'm quite okay at and where I can bring something to.
It's always nice to share a problem as well, right?
Yeah.
But,
so no, that's the next bit for me. Yeah.
Okay, sounds exciting. One thing that no one knows, about you.
I was born in Weymouth. Not very interesting for the listeners, but the people that will watch this.
Yeah. Weymouth.
I was born in Weymouth, yeah.
You've got a Liverpudlian accent.
So Dad and Spud and all those lot. That's why they call me Weymouth Weldon. But because my dad was in the military, and that's where he was based, and that's where I popped out. I was born in Portland, in Weymouth.
Beautiful part of the world, mate.
I've never been. It's on the list.
There we go. There we go. You've got to go. Maybe take Sarah. Maybe that.
No, Sarah's planned something for us to.
Oh, lovely.
To go, but I popped out in Weymouth, so technically my driver's licence and passport, place of birth is Weymouth, but at 3 months old I was back at Liverpool.
Back at Liverpool.
Yeah, not very interesting.
No, but it's still a fact that I didn't know and one I do now. So look, I really appreciate everything, you coming down to see me today. I know the journey was a bit of a shitter, but again, I really respect what you've done, and I really respect you sharing your journey. Thanks for your time, mate. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice one,
really
pal.
mean that. Cheers.
Just wanted to say a massive thank you for Ben for sharing your story and your insights to me and the listeners. I also wanted to say a massive thank you to you, the listeners. Without you, this journey wouldn't be possible. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for more conversations with inspiring entrepreneurs.